The American Revolution, a time of war, courage, and freedom, or at least that's how it's taught in school. But what actually happened during this pivotal period in history, from the first battles to the last treaty? Join me as we embark on a journey through time to explore the American Revolution, one of the most important periods in American history. But before we dive into the details, let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered why the American Revolution happened? What were the key events that led to the birth of the United States of America? And who were the legendary leaders who fought for freedom? If you want to learn more about the American Revolution, and be sure to stay tuned, because there are some interesting facts that you might not know. So let's get started. The American Revolution was a time when the 13 American colonies became independent from British rule. This period is also known as the Revolutionary War, which lasted from 1775 to 1783. The war began with the Battles of Lexington and Concord in April of 1775 and ended with the British surrender at Yorktown in October of 1781. During this time, the American colonies were fighting for their freedom against the most powerful empire in the world at the time, the British Empire. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they were determined to win their independence. At the start of the war, the relationship between the American colonies and Great Britain was complicated. For many years, the colonies had enjoyed a relatively peaceful existence under British rule. However, things began to change in the mid-1700s when the British government decided to tighten its control over the colonies. One of the main reasons for this was to pay off the massive debt that Britain had incurred during the French and Indian War. As a result, the British government began to impose new taxes on the American colonies, such as the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts. These taxes were deeply unpopular in the colonies as the colonists felt that they were being taxed without representation, as they had no voice in the British Parliament. This cry of no taxation without representation became a rallying cry for the Revolution. Another reason for the growing tension was the growing sense of American identity. Over time, the colonists had developed a distinct American culture that was different from that of Britain. This was due to a variety of factors, including the vast distance between the colonies and Britain, as well as the unique challenges and opportunities that the New World presented. As a result, many colonists began to feel that they were Americans first and foremost, rather than British subjects. This growing sense of American identity was also fueled by the Enlightenment ideas of individual rights and self-government, which were spreading throughout the colonies. Thinkers such as John Locke and Montesquieu had argued that government should be based on the consent of the governed, and that citizens had the right to overthrow any government that infringed upon their natural rights. In addition to these political and intellectual factors, there were also economic factors at play. The American colonies had developed a strong sense of economic independence from Britain. The colonies had a growing number of merchants and manufacturers who were interested in expanding their economic opportunities. They saw British policies, such as the Navigation Acts, which restricted colonial trade, as a threat to their economic growth. As tensions continued to rise between the colonies and Britain, it became clear that war was inevitable. The first shots of the war were fired on April 19, 1775, at the Battles of Lexington and Concord. This was followed by the Siege of Boston in June 1775, which saw the British forces withdraw from Boston after a year-long siege. This was a major victory for the colonists and showed that they were capable of defeating the British Army. Throughout the war, there were several other important battles. The Battle of Bunker Hill in June 1776 was a costly victory for the British and showed that the colonists were willing to pay a heavy price for their freedom. The Battle of Saratoga in October 1777 is considered a turning point in the war as it convinced France to join the conflict as an ally of the colonists. The final major battle of the war was the Battle of Yorktown in October 1781, where the British General Cornwallis surrendered to the combined forces of the colonists and the French. This effectively ended the war and led to the recognition of American independence by the British. But what about the people who led the American colonies during this time? Who were the key figures who fought for independence? Some of the most famous names in American history include George Washington, the commander of the Continental Army. Washington was a Virginia planter and military leader who played a pivotal role in securing victory for the colonists. His leadership skills and ability to inspire his troops were instrumental in overcoming the odds and defeating the British. Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers and a key figure in the American Revolution. Franklin was a renowned scientist, inventor, and diplomat who helped secure the support of France for the colonial cause. He was also a major contributor to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence. Jefferson was a Virginia planter and statesman who drafted the document that outlined the reasons for the break between the colonies and Britain. His eloquent writing and stirring call for liberty and self-government continue to inspire people around the world today. Other important figures include John Adams, Samuel Adams, Patrick Henry, Thomas Paine, and James Madison, all of whom made significant contributions to the fight for independence and the establishment of the United States. The American Revolution was not fought in a vacuum. Other countries and their leaders also played a role in the outcome of the war. One of the most important allies of the colonists was France. France was eager to weaken its rival, Great Britain, and saw an opportunity to do so by supporting the colonial cause. French King Louis XVI provided significant financial and military aid to the colonists, which helped them to sustain their war effort. Another important ally was Spain, which joined the war in 1779. Spain was motivated by a desire to recover territories lost to Britain in the 7 Years' War, and also to weaken the British Empire. Finally, the Netherlands also provided assistance to the colonists, mainly in the form of loans and supplies. As the war came to a close, it was clear that the balance of power was shifting. The victory at Yorktown in 1781 was a decisive moment that showed the weakness of the British Empire. The British government was eager to end the war and move on to other challenges. As a result, peace negotiations were held in Paris in 1782 and 1783. The Treaty of Paris was signed on September 3, 1783, and it formally recognized the independence of the United States of America. The treaty also established the boundaries of the new nation and granted it all of the territory east of the Mississippi River, north to south from the Great Lakes to the Spanish border. With the war over and independence secured, the newly formed United States of America was ready to begin a new chapter in history. The country was built on the ideals of liberty, democracy, and self-government, and its future looked bright. The American Revolution was a defining moment in world history. It marked the first time that a group of colonies had successfully overthrown an empire and established a new nation based on the principles of liberty and self-government. The war also had a profound impact on the world stage as it inspired other nations to fight for their own freedom and independence. Today, the legacy of the American Revolution lives on in the hearts and minds of people around the world. The courage and determination of the Founding Fathers and the principles of liberty and democracy continue to inspire people to fight for freedom and justice. So as we look back on this pivotal moment in history, let us be inspired by the courage of those who fought for our freedom and the ideals of liberty and democracy that our nation was founded upon. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time to explore the American Revolution. I hope you've learned something new and have a deeper appreciation for this pivotal period in American history. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Also, if you'd like to learn more about the American Revolution or other historical topics, be sure to check out my channel. I'm always adding new videos, and I think you'll find something that interests you. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.